You're listening to the Dirty Air Podcast.
Hey, let me hear some Skinner, brother.
It's in the face, Dillon. In the face.
I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't know how to party.
And now, here are your hosts, Chuck Busch, Jonathan Merriman, and Matthew Dillner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Dirty Air Podcast here on NASCAR.com or on iTunes or on YouTube or all of the various other places that you can go and listen to and watch this podcast because it's a fun time. I'm Chuck Busch. I'm joined today, as always, by my lovely compatriots, Mr. Matthew Dillner and Mr. Jonathan Merriman.
Yeah, he should be first.
Well,
no, I'm left on the screen.
Yeah.
Screen left.
I literally looked up and went, oh, that's the first thing that I saw right there.
And if you're not
was
first,
Matthew
you're last.
Dillner. So
See how it is.
yeah, I mean, it happens. Hey, the past couple of shows I've introduced you first.
That's why I'm so upset. I like routine.
I literally have spent the past, I don't know, 80, how many hours with you in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I mean, we did have Haddock together.
We had Haddock together. We did a lot of things. We did a garage cam where we talked in accents. It was wicked
We
awesome.
all talked about the NASCAR races up there in Loudon, New Hampshire. So
It's pretty cool, though. No, I had a great time in Loudon this weekend. I always have a good time in New Hampshire. Live free or die state, man. It's pretty awesome.
or
not gonna lie.
live free or pie.
Live free or pie.
Because the boys pulled a prank on me and painted my van basically.
He had a
Live
rather
Free.
large van, and there were rather large windows on the van, so we thought, why not get some of that the soap paint that you can get at Walmart that is easily wash-offable?
And I like pie.
And he likes pie, so we just altered the state motto a little bit to live free or pie. And so when he's driving to the track, Sunday morning, folks are looking at him like, does that guy have pie in that van?
Did one side say free candy?
It might have. I don't know.
It might have.
But we have fun on the road. It's a good time. And,
you got to.
Yeah, and yes, you're probably listening to the show on a Wednesday, maybe a Thursday or a Friday sometime,
Who
but
knows?
we're actually recording it on a Monday. Because the two of you are getting ready to travel out to Eldora and all that, but
Dirt track.
Matthew actually flew in today. Oh, I flew in
I was
today.
late. Well, I was late.
He was late. I was on time. I flew in. I had a 9:40 flight out of Boston.
Why was I late, though?
Why were you late?
I was late because I have a pregnant wife who I wanted to bring cannolis home to her. And then I said that last week, and my boy Merriman here said, "What's a cannoli?" So I went to Mike's Pastry, the best cannolis. I'm a New Yorker. This is sacrilege to say this, but Boston has the best cannolis. And Merriman, your first cannoli.
It looks delicious.
Do you know what a cannoli is?
It looks like something fried with a lot of sugar in it.
Yes, it's a fried kind of shell. Cannoli, the name cannoli derives from a Italian word
For can
meaning
oil?
tube. So it's basically a fried tube of creamy goodness with ricotta cheese in it and chocolate chips. And Chuck, I didn't leave you out.
Oh,
You
hey,
have
I
to
get a
do-
cannoli too.
Here, I don't think you get a diaper though.
Oh, that's fine.
No, you see the cannoli right there?
Look
The
at that. That
cannolis
is a
look great.
good-looking cannoli.
Go
Now,
get you a bite of cannoli.
Freedom.
I will have to say, for this podcast, I'm going to do it. You should have taken the flight and left the cannoli.
I see what you did.
You see what I did there?
Hey,
You come to me. You cannot refuse.
you come to me on the day of my podcast.
You come to me
Saying you're
on
gonna be
this,
late?
the day of my podcast, and tell me you're going to be late, so we can't talk about that great win by Kyle Busch up in New Hampshire.
I'll take a cannoli.
But you know
over
what?
Kyle Busch's win.
You brought me a cannoli, so I
pretty
can't
good.
really.
Hey,
can't
it's
really
just
hate.
brownie points.
For a
Cannoli
it's good
points.
cannoli.
While I enjoy my lovely cannoli, we did have a race this weekend. It wasn't just haddock, cannolis, and food and writing stuff on vans. Lobster. There was a lobster that was handed out on Sunday. Did you see that? Were you there in Victory Lane when that happened?
I was there in Victory Lane. That was a mighty big lobster.
It was a
there
mighty
from,
big lobster. Yeah.
Macris.
Loudon the lobster from Macris.
Loudon.
Yeah.
Jerry Gappin's there, you know.
Yeah, no,
gave
it was
to him
good.
there in Victory Lane.
So Kyle Busch gets his second win in 2 weeks, his third since he's been back. Man, that guy, he seems to be on fire right now.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's-
I mean,
he's
is that all
slightly
you got?
fast.
He's pretty good. He's
He's
slightly
slightly
fast. The move that he made
Wow.
to unlap himself
And at the time, he probably didn't realize, Chuck, that was going to be the move of the race.
What he knew was that he had a vibration, and it felt like the tire was going down, but there were also reports of oil on the track.
I was out in turn 4. There was.
And you see him come in there, kind of, he knows that the caution might be coming out maybe at this point because he's come in, he's got 4 fresh tires on there, and he's like, I got to do what I got to do. These are leaders. I got to unlap myself.
What a move.
And he goes in there, goes door to door with Keselowski, gets him a little bit loose, and then Harvick is battling the lap car of Landon Castle. So
the crossover
move, and to get unlapped, and then a few laps later, caution comes out, and these guys have to pit, leaving guess who in the lead?
With ultimate track position, Kyle Busch, a daring, gutsy move, and a move that turned out to win the race. He had fresh tires, though. So let's not all go off the deep end and say that he's absolutely Superman. But then again, he is. 3 wins in the last 4 races. That's just absurd.
That, and he's handled a race car like that his whole career. I just don't know that we've seen the consistency and the urgency that he's been placed, the pressure he's been placed under right now to make the chase. That's elevating his game a little bit, in my opinion.
And in times in the past when he had that type of situation, pressure cooker situation, he'd fall.
Yep.
So this is different.
He's very composed.
It's almost like he knows what he has to do, and they're firing on all cylinders. So, with that said, is he one of the best drivers in Cup right now?
I'm going to say the best driver in Cup right now. But here's what I'm going to say. Right now. You know why?
Why?
Rowdy Busch is the best driver in Cup right now, but in racing, you're only as good as your next race. And right now, you look at it, the last few races, he's the man on top of the mountain. But you're only as good as your next race. So we're moving on.
I'm interested to see how he's going to run at Indy.
Well, now he doesn't have to really, light the world on fire to make this chase.
He didn't have to at New Hampshire either.
What, light the world on fire?
But he did.
Stars lined up.
Well, as he said in his post-race interview, that it worked out for him. They knew going into this that they'd have to be calculated and take risks when they could. And this was, in a way, that's a calculated risk, but it's one that you almost have to make. And with the 4 fresh tires, I think he felt pretty confident that he could make that stick, and he did. And then, he gets the lucky fall of the caution flag there. So a combination of luck and skill.
He goes from 35th in points, 87 out, to 33rd in points, 58 out of 30th.
Chasing David Gilliland right now.
He's almost there.
We've been saying for the past couple of weeks that, each week we've been looking, all right, so he's got to average a 17th place finish. Now he's got to average a 16th place finish. Now he's got to average what, like a 20th?
Yeah.
For the till the chase? Somewhere in there? Like he has to average around that, but say he goes out and gets another win, he frees himself up a little bit. That way if he has a mistake, maybe he's able to rebound from that a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. If you take Daytona out of the picture, in his cars that he has had since he came back, points racing in the 600, he's been fast everywhere. It's just the past 4 weeks.
2 little mistakes he made. 2 mistakes, that's it.
The past 4 weeks, he has just been clicking, except for Daytona.
But give credit to that team, okay? Just as much as give credit to Kyle Busch, because when he was gone and David Reagan was filling in, not just the credit goes to David Reagan, the team also should get that credit for holding it together and keeping that team at a level that when Kyle came back, it would be on top.
I'm impressed that it was hit the ground running like it was.
Well, and David Reagan had a good run, qualifying and up there in New Hampshire. That 55 team, they know what it takes to get a win there,
and they need it desperately.
And they do.
MWR needs a Band-Aid to stop the bleeding right now.
If you look at the other Toyota camp over there at Gibbs, it's almost like once Kyle came back, it was like a fire was lit over there in general. Not that they weren't doing well before, but you look at when he came back around the 600, all right? They've got wins. They're sitting on the pole. His teammate, Carl Edwards, sat on the pole to start the race up in New Hampshire, and then he goes in and wins.
Chemistry and timing is what it is right now. Kyle Busch comes back. You look at that All-Star weekend, that injection of life into JGR when he came back, and then you look over at the 19 camp, and Carl Edwards regaining kind of a confidence, a little bit of a swagger. And it took him and Darian Grubb a little time to kind of develop their chemistry, and now we're seeing that. So you have Matt Kenseth and Denny Hamlin very established, Kyle Busch coming back from injuries, and now the 19 team kind of hitting their stride in chemistry. Joe Gibbs is one of the top teams in Cup racing right now.
Kyle Busch also adds a lot to a notebook. I mean, Matt Kenseth, Denny Hamlin, and Carl Edwards are going to give you solid feedback. But when you add Kyle Busch and what he feels in the car in their notes.
And that's not to take anything away from David Reagan.
Not at
but
all.
Kyle has known this team, and he knows the information that he needs to give them. And that I think that just, they're clicking.
And a big tip of the cap to Adam Stevens.
Oh, yeah.
Who doesn't get any of the credit in this deal. Comes over from the NASCAR Xfinity Series side, and in his rookie performance as a Cup crew chief now has 3 wins and could be a Chase contending crew chief now. A lot of people don't talk about that because he's under the radar.
But that goes back to that chemistry because they have worked together for how many years now?
Yeah, and
they know how to talk to each other, and that pays dividends.
Just
on
like
the
us,
racetrack.
just like all of us.
And also, let's just talk about when NASCAR set the rule up in place where he had to make the top 30 in points. They afforded him an opportunity, and he's taken advantage of it. So,
they said, you have to hit this mark. And he's all right, I see that mark, and I raise you. But the question is, we've seen it in the past when he makes it into the chase. He tends to fall apart. Now, we've talked about this before. We've seen a more mature Kyle Busch. Does that hold true going into the chase?
He's not going to have the miles on him these other guys have. I mean,
that's a good point.
He's been at home for a good part of the first half of the year, so.
Although he has been working hard, he's been rehabbing.
He has.
He's not 100% right now.
Yep.
As far as his movement and whatnot, he's not.
So, I mean, in terms of not seeing that anybody else isn't eager to get in the car every week, but when you do it week in and week out.
Refreshed.
It gets hot. You get dehydrated. You have to travel. It's a lot to take in account for. So.
I think the biggest key will be if they make the chase, which I think Kyle Busch is going to make the chase. I think everybody sort of agrees with that now because a few weeks ago we all were like, I think the big key is going to be one race for me to see if Kyle Busch is ready to be a champion. Kansas, a place that he just seems to be snake bitten at.
Yeah,
that's one of those ones where when he rolls in there. There's just that negative connotation of what's going to happen this weekend.
What do you got to see?
And then it snowballs from there.
What do you have to see? Where are you comfortable at Kansas if you're Kyle Busch? Top 10?
Top
15?
Top 10 finishing the race and being up there in practice and qualifying. Keep that momentum. Don't have a race like that just squashes your momentum.
Speaking of, you mentioned hydration earlier. This weekend, it was hot up in New Hampshire. It was unseasonably warm. Yeah, for down here in North Carolina, it's 95 degrees out there. It was 90, probably a little bit over 90. So drivers were obviously trying to hydrate during the race. And what happens when you when you have all that, you intake all the water, you got to get rid of that empty water bottle. And I've noticed today on Twitter, there have been a lot of tweets about, is that a good move to throw the water bottle out? You saw 2 of them in the race, and here we see Brad Keselowski was tweeting saying, we do this all the time. It's a common practice. There's just, what's your take on water bottles in the sport?
Well, I like water bottles, and I think everybody who drives a race car knows you need to take in some hydration during a race. And you know what? This deal is a hot topic right now, but it's been going on forever. I mean, especially water bottles, but, you used to see it where people threw roll bar padding out or would bring an extra set of gloves in a car and throw it out and try to get a caution. Those water bottles weren't necessarily maybe to cause a caution, but at that time with those long green flag runs, it probably was. But usually we don't get cautions for water bottles, so that was a little unusual.
And so you were going to say something, Jonathan? You had
a
look on your face like you wanted to jump in on this.
Maybe he wants a water bottle.
We just locked eyes, and it was magical.
It was.
So you take it away, Chuck.
No, I was just going to say, NASCAR came out this morning and said that Steve O'Donnell said that they were going to look into this.
Well, it's a situation, too, where if you're throwing it out because you don't want it rolling around on the floorboard, gets under your gas pedal, gets under your brake pedal, you can't stop, you can't go. I mean, especially if it gets under your brake pedal, I mean, that's a 3,400 pound, chunk
Especially
of metal.
at a place like New Hampshire.
You can't stop. The thing that we have to be careful with is we don't want them throwing them out on the track to try to manipulate the outcome of a race. In the past, we've known how that's turned out with other things.
And we've seen that happen throughout the history of the sport.
That's the big thing. The guys have to get water. They have to drink in the car.
Nobody's saying that they shouldn't have water in the car. Yeah.
No, and then again, they can't have the stuff rolling around in the floorboard of the car.
But Dale Earnhardt Jr. said, hey, wait until a pit stop. Wait until you're under caution. Don't do it under green. Is it a bit of gamesmanship on some of these drivers' part to try and,
Well, we saw Ray Evernham chime in and say, hey, we used to throw ours out of our car with Jeff Gordon and write a number on it. We'd write Jeff Burton's number on it to try and get him in trouble.
Should they label, should every piece in that car
I don't think
have a label on it?
I don't think it's a big enough problem.
If you can easily, I could leave a water bottle in here and write Matthew Dillner on it and blame
Everybody
him.
will think it's me, and
you got to start
off.
As long as we put the
numbers
water bottles
on water
over there.
bottles.
Well,
Yeah, it's
you could
just
if you left the cannoli here, it wouldn't be mine.
Yeah,
because it would be finished.
I think if everyone in a perfect world, if everyone was responsible, we'd be okay. But you don't know the intent behind the water bottle, so.
Another thing that we saw in the Xfinity race up there in New Hampshire was Kyle Busch's teammate Denny Hamlin get into it with I don't want to say longtime rival, but they've had a history in the past. Austin Dillon, Denny Hamlin had a couple of words. They mixed it up on the track a little bit, and this is what they had to say during the race and following the race.
Good racing or something else, Austin?
I wasn't good racing. I hadn't raced him all day. He was nervous or something. Got to get back around me, just moved me up the track. He never wanted to race side by side for a lap with anybody. He wrecked his teammate at the beginning of the race. It's all good. We got plenty of races left. It'll happen again to him.
And you talked about tomorrow. What would you like to see in the form of repayment?
I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it. He won't be ready.
Well, he jumped the restart for one. You got to. I'm the control car, but that's fine. And eventually, I was going to get back around him anyway. But same thing. I was a fender ahead, and he drove in there knowing that he was going to have to hold me low to hold the position, and I just washed up into him. But that's two guys on a short track race for a win.
What is racing if you can't race side by side for more than a corner? He never even went through a corner with me. The whole race. Didn't want to. He just moved me. I've reworked a relationship with Denny. He called me a spoiled rich kid in Texas 2 years ago, and I ate it. You know what I mean? He said just the last name, and I said my last name's Dillon, not Childress, but he is my grandfather. I'll always act with class. Everybody in the media knows that. And I've worked my way here just like anybody else. And with Denny acting like that, what does he want me to call him? I don't do that.
It's just heat of the moment. Obviously, I was as upset as he was that I moved him out of the way. I was just upset that he jumped the restart. So
I don't know if you heard, but he was talking about Texas a couple of years ago where you called him a spoiled rich kid or something to that effect. And he's like, what am I supposed to call? Pretty much said, what am I supposed to call Denny now after this?
A winner.
That was ESPN's Bob Hawkers asking the question, and Joe Gibbs Racing, Denny Hamlin doing the mic drop. I mean, you heard it there. They're just kind of taking a couple of jabs at each other.
Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, this was an Xfinity Series race. These are both Cup drivers. This is an extra thing for them. It's not necessarily the series that they make their bread and butter living in. Now, granted, they're both race car drivers. If they weren't passionate about, they could be out there racing bicycles and they'd probably feel the same way. So it's good to see in a certain aspect, but then again,
I love it.
I like it too.
I absolutely love it because it's entertaining, okay? And it was good, hard racing. And if you know the lines at Loudon, it's not a very defined racing line. Those wide sweeping corners that are actually really, really long corners. But Austin came down on him a little. You saw that. Denny, well, he kind of lost the nose on it. That's called racing. Now, from Austin's point of view, I don't blame him for being ticked off. From Denny's point of view, hey, man, we were just racing. So, I mean, it comes down to, they had an incident and then they brought back the past incidents. And it's just, it's a boiling thing that's going to boil over at some point.
But if I'm a crew chief on the Cup side, I don't want to see Xfinity drama, number one, cost Austin Dillon a spot in the chase because he's not high enough in points or he can't get a win, or cost Denny Hamlin a spot because he's in an elimination round and Austin Dillon decides, he got me in the Xfinity Series. I'm going to get him in the Cup Series. He's not going to make the next round of the chase.
Say Austin Dillon doesn't make the chase. All right?
Okay.
Do you see him at a Bristol or a Martinsville, a track where it might be a little bit easier to get a little bit of retaliation? Does he do something then? Or does this lay dormant for another couple of years and then flare up again?
I think in the Cup Series, it would take Denny doing something to Austin before Austin would retaliate and cost Denny a chase spot. But in the Xfinity Series, it's all's fair game because they have nothing to lose there.
No, they don't. And head games is the other thing that we're forgetting to look into here. Will they get together on the track? Who knows? But they're both kind of playing head games with each other. With Denny saying, "What should he call me?" A winner. That's a dig.
That's a jab right there.
That's a big time jab right there. And then also with Austin saying, "Well, I'm not going to say when it's going to happen. He's not going to know it's coming." Means, okay, when Denny's driving now around him, he's got that in the back of his head.
He's going to think twice.
Look in the mirror, see that 3 car.
I mean,
just like old times.
You have seen in the past head games in Denny Hamlin before.
He likes getting into that. He does.
He does.
He always has.
But we're going to see if Austin
as a competitor, though, I think that you have to do that. You have to get inside your head. Michael Jordan, famously, I think it was a game against the Hawks. He, hits his first shot of the game, sits 55, runs down the court. Hits his next shot, 54. And finally, the guy that was guarding him said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I picked the number that I was going to score on you tonight, and I'm counting down from there." It's a head game. And Michael Jordan, one of the greatest in the world in basketball.
Well, you look at Denny Hamlin. I mean, it's gone for him, and it's gone against him in his career, playing head games or getting involved in some skirmishes on and off the track. If you look at the called shot at New Hampshire last year, that's a head game that worked. So you never know with Denny Hamlin. It is pretty entertaining to have a driver like that, whether you like him or you don't like him, that goes out there and walks tall and carries a big stick.
Recently, the biggest person who's made that pay off in terms of a championship was Tony Stewart over Carl Edwards.
Oh man, that
was the ultimate.
Ever since Smoke won at Martinsville, it's
the psych out, man.
It was awesome.
It's the psych out. And speaking of Smoke, we're going to his track this week on Wednesday, Eldora.
And you have the hat on.
I have the hat on. I went out there last year, man. I
used a koozie the other day, the Eldora koozie.
It's just an awesome, awesome place. The koozie has a flap over it because if you've never been to a dirt track, and if you've never been, you need to go.
I haven't been, Chuck.
You need to go.
Wait, have you never been to a dirt track in general?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Oh man.
This
is your first. Wow. You were in for a treat. I mean, they're going to be sliding around. They're going to be jostling. It's just good old fashioned dirt track racing.
Yeah. Matt Strickard, our producer in my ear, he was telling me that there's a dirt late model race also at Eldora.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the dirt late models at Eldora, I mean, one of the things that are so legendary about that place, but now in this short history, on the 3rd year, here at Eldora, the trucks are becoming a part of that rich history. This place right here, if you're a short track fan and a dirt track fan, Eldora is like the Daytona of dirt. Earl Baltus, just so much history at Eldora from some of the biggest paying short track, dirt track races in the history of our sport. This place here has put dirt track racing on the map for so many reasons, and now with NASCAR.
Well, I have to ask the question. We're 3 years in.
Yes.
To run it. This would be the 3rd year that the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series has gone to Eldora to run a race. Is the novelty wearing off?
I don't think so.
Not for this guy, because
But you're a fan.
I'm a
you
fan.
are a hardcore racing fan.
And I like to see things that are different. And the NASCAR fan always wants to see something different. They want to see different winners. They want to see different leaders during the course of a race. They want to see things that are different. There's no event on the NASCAR schedule, in my opinion, personal opinion, across all 3 series that's more different than the trucks at Eldora.
Does Christmas get old? Does the 4th of July get old? Does your birthday get old every year?
We all know
Well,
it's
my
coming.
birthday does get old. I get
Technically,
older
it
on my
gets old.
birthday.
But, you know, it comes around every year. And as a race fan and a fan of motorsports in general, it's something I look forward to. And yeah, it's not, it's not the first time it's happened. But you got, you know, 3,000 plus pound race cars side by side, door to door.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson, you know,
Slapping it against the wall.
cracking a brake rotor off the front of the truck last year. I mean, it's insane
And
stuff.
the fans will show up. The fans always pack Eldora no matter what you put on the track there. Yeah, the hype might be gone from the first year where everybody was talking about it. But throughout the industry, I still think the hype is at a good enough level. And as far as the fans are concerned, they're going to pack that joint.
Well, and
let's just put it this way. When I was not working at NASCAR, I made sure I was home in time and had enough time to stay up and watch the first qualifying heat race to the end of the main event.
Well, the thing is, this is not a new concept in racing.
No.
Dirt racing has been around since the beginning of the sport.
Yeah, part of NASCAR's heritage.
Oh, yeah. I saw our producer upstairs, Matt Strickert, tweeted out in his famous hashtag Strickert
He's getting
way
a lot
of
of
doing
shout-outs
things. He
today.
is. He
Which
is.
the
He
reason
always
we
does.
say hashtag Strickert is because
Strickert,
Matt likes to be very eloquent in his tweet.
He tweeted out a quote from the book. I believe the title of the book is Big Bill, written by Herb Branham, who is the ISC Archive senior manager of the ISC Archive, wrote a book on Bill France Sr. And one of the quotes in there, right around the founding of NASCAR, was about the importance of dirt track racing and how it's so, like, you can put on the best show on dirt. All other types of racing pale in comparison to dirt track racing.
You don't get the speed, but you get more action from what I've seen. I mean, you know,
it's the roots of our sport. And this fan base here that we have is so diverse in NASCAR. But then there's that core fan, that hardcore racing fan. And this is the event they get geeked up over, okay? Because we talk about roots. Can roots take I'm an asphalt guy. I love asphalt. I grew up in asphalt racing. But roots can really take hold in dirt, okay? I know that's literal and kind of silly, but this is the place. This is the type of race that we really, truly come closest to our roots.
Have you ever heard any, and I haven't, and I'm asking you, not being sarcastic, but have you ever heard anyone who hasn't wrecked out of a dirt race or this truck race on dirt, a fan, say, you know what? Dirt racing at Eldora is not for me.
Nobody leaves that joint thinking that.
I haven't heard of anyone say that.
You are in for a big treat when you get out there.
I'm pretty pumped up about it.
And the good thing, it's not that big of an expense for these teams. I hate to open up another can of worms, but this isn't an event where it would really benefit the teams to not have for cost reasons. So this thing is a win-win.
Well, and it puts your series on display at a unique venue.
Yes.
A lot more people, I feel like, tune in and watch that race than watch a normal truck series race, and you're in the middle of the week.
It's the Mud Summer Classic. It's on a Wednesday. I know last Wednesday was the one day in the year where there are no live sporting events on. And a couple of drivers tweeted out that, hey, maybe the Cup Series needs to run a midweek race. We saw a couple of tweets. Brad Keselowski talks about it all the time. Kevin Harvick was jumping in there and talking about it on Twitter. I know they both have even talked about it in the media center, saying that it would be a good way to draw fans. Is that something that NASCAR could feasibly look into?
They're NASCAR. They can do anything. They have a lot of a lot of pull. They can set it up how they want to set it up, and they can make it work.
The bottom line is, I think it would work. But here's my stipulation: a Wednesday show would be great. Okay, it would be something different, like Eldora is something different. But if we do it all the time, it loses the luster. Okay, it loses that shine. So if we did one really, really good, well-promoted Wednesday show, midweek show, and brand it and market it and have it at the right venue, Chuck, it would be a hit.
The venue is key, in my opinion, because, all right, most people take a NASCAR weekend and turn it into a vacation.
Yes.
If you put that race on a Wednesday, you're limiting who can come to the show. So you're automatically looking at TV as your number one target audience.
Yes.
Well,
So you almost have to go to a smaller venue to pull it off.
you could, and
A good market, the right market, though, is the big thing. If it was in a Richmond market where it's close to downtown, someplace like Darlington, in my opinion, Darlington wouldn't work in a more small rural town where most of the people around that community are at work. They're working, so to take one day off to spend the day at a racetrack, or even get there, as soon as you're done with work, I think at a market like a Richmond, it could work better.
could you almost do it at an Eldora and run your trucks and Cup on 2 days, but you do your qualifying races for both on the Tuesday, and you do your actual points race on a Wednesday, have a double header both days?
Well, that goes back to another argument. I mean,
the
should we be racing on dirt
Yeah.
more than the truck series, the Camping World Truck Series? This guy right here, I don't know about you, Chuck and Merriman, this guy right here wants it. Okay, I know.
You want to see Cup cars on dirt or Xfinity cars on dirt?
Or Xfinity. I say we start small, just like we did with the Truck Series, and we tried it and it worked. Well, now I think the next step in that progression, whether it's at Eldora or anywhere else, Charlotte, the next step would be to do it with the Xfinity car.
Do you try running the All-Star race on dirt, maybe at the dirt track here in Charlotte as a test?
I think that's a wonderful idea.
You could even try that on...
They have a brand new road course as well that they're building, that they redid at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And between a dirt track, an amazing historic oval track, and that road course, I think the future of the All-Star race, personally, is cycling it throughout those three venues.
We talked about that this year at Charlotte. My dream All-Star race would be that, because it is a true test of your driving skill if you're running a dirt track, if you're running a short track, if you're running a mile and a half, if you're running a road course.
Each year it's marketed differently, so it's special, it's exciting.
And there's no way that it could actually happen like this, but in my mind, like if I had unlimited money and I could do whatever I wanted to do, I would run that over a couple of days, and you qualify for each one by where you finish in, like you start on the dirt track.
With the same car? Because that's what it was in my head just now. I think
it would be difficult to do with dirt. Yeah,
we're getting wild.
We're getting off the rails, but I think to test it, a true All-Star race, you try it out, and because you could do it at Charlotte because of the different configurations, and you could make it a big festival-type atmosphere.
I know it's got to be thought of by Charlotte Motor Speedway. I mean, I've seen Marcus Smith at Eldora, and he wasn't sitting in a press box or, hobnobbing in the infield. He was actually in the grandstands of Eldora that first year with a hot dog, taking it in to see what the whole atmosphere was like. A place like Charlotte, a place like Knoxville, one of the big palaces of dirt track racing, much like Eldora, those three places right there could be a really good fit for our sport. So it's interesting to see where our sport's going to go as far as going forward, but at the same time revisiting the roots.
Well, and, speaking of that, speaking of our sport going forward, we're heading to Indy after that. And we're looking at the future of the Xfinity Series and the future of the Cup Series with rules packages. We were talking about our pipe dreams and what we'd love to see happen as fans of racing, which, the reality is it's maybe in a perfect world that could happen, but more than likely anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
But right now, we're looking at a new rules package for Cup. And then we're also looking at, it was announced this morning,
Big
NASCAR Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer Steve O'Donnell was on NASCAR.com and had this to say about the two series racing at Indy. So let's roll that.
From our perspective, the high drag package that's going to be implemented in both the Xfinity and Cup Series, hopefully the ability for the cars to be able to draft a little bit for that second or chase pack to be able to catch the leader. And obviously the Xfinity cars are somewhat underpowered compared to Cup, so it'll give us a look at how the power works with both of those packages, what are some of the gears that we used, and what, if any, tweaks do we need to make coming out of Indianapolis. So just provide some different data for us for both series. Obviously a different level for both of those, but anything we can do to improve both the Xfinity and Cup race, we wanted to do that. And we think we've hit on that for the weekend.
Again, that was NASCAR Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer Steve O'Donnell talking about the decision to run the same package for both the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
That's big news.
That is big news.
Very big news.
All right, say you're a guy that you're a Cup driver and you happen to run in the Xfinity Series a good bit. Does this benefit you?
I don't think it's going to benefit from the driver standpoint. I don't think it's going to benefit for translating, Saturday to Sunday as far as the Xfinity car to the Cup car. But what I see here is a rules change to try something, much like we did in Kentucky. And in Kentucky, we hit a home run. This deal here, I'm not sure how it's going to play out. But we're likely to see the cars closer together, which in the Xfinity races at Indy so far, they've been very strung out. So this deal with those low horsepower cars with the NASCAR Xfinity Series, I think we're going to see them closer together, more drafting, more slingshots. I think this could be a very entertaining race.
You're still going to have to hit the brakes too, which is something that interests me with,
less
drafting, hitting the slingshot. But then if you're close, I mean, it's 4 90-degree corners. You're going to have to touch a brake pedal. It's not going to be like Daytona and Talladega. So when you hear drafting, it's not going to be wide open all the way around there. I'm interested to see how the drafting and the braking and all that stuff's going to work out. If the package, lends itself to drafting, who knows what it's going to do when it's on the car.
I just think it's going to be an entertaining race.
Well, and that's what we look for.
I think it's a great idea, and I'm all for it. When I first heard it, I went, what?
We're doing this?
What? But then when I listen,
when you let it sink in, you're like,
when you let it sink in,
yeah.
This might work because, in my personal opinion, I think the first, little dabble of Indianapolis Motor Speedway with our NASCAR Xfinity Series hasn't been a flop, but it's just been a little disappointing as far as on action. It's great to be on the big stage, but it's disappointed me. I think this right here is going to be the wake-up call that makes this a really good race.
Get a last lap pass, I'll be happy.
Yeah, well, and if you look at the Xfinity Series this year and the races this year, there have been some exciting races in that series.
Because you have a really strong crop of young drivers and Xfinity regulars, something that's been building up over the last few years. And then with the emergence of young stars like Bubba Wallace, like Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, this is what the Xfinity Series should be.
It's been some drama there too, which...
Yeah. Well, we even had drama with the Cup guys last week. So, having the Cup guys in there, some people like it, some people don't. Get over it. Right now, it is what it is. As long as we have some entertainment, whether it's two guys getting together at New Hampshire or two Xfinity Series regulars getting together at Dover, and good racing, we're good.
Why wouldn't you want the measuring stick there?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to find the right words here.
Just say it.
Just say blunt. This is dirty air. Come on.
It used to be last year, or not last year, but in the past, you'd think if there's a Cup guy in there, chances are he's probably going to go out there, he's going to dominate, he's going to win.
Kyle Busch.
Brad Keselowski. Yeah. But this year, those Xfinity Series regulars have beat those Cup guys because they've been racing against them for the past couple of years.
And there's also some big-name Xfinity Series drivers that don't have wins this year yet.
This is true.
So...
and to play devil's advocate here, Kyle Busch is back, folks. So every single week, I think that road to the checkered flag goes through Kyle Busch. And everybody that knows the history of the Xfinity Series knows, well, that's true.
Indy is a place that is known for a couple of things. You got a guy named Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon has been struggling this year. But Indy is a place, it's close to his hometown. It's a track that's near and dear to his heart. Does Jeff Gordon break the slump of his season this year? Or at this track? He won there last year.
Do you believe in fairy tales?
Sometimes.
Do you like a good story? Do you like to read a good story?
I do, and I've been wanting that all year with Jeff Gordon.
Well, you know what? Sometimes when you have a Super Bowl, sometimes when you have a World Series, sometimes when you have a NHL Stanley Cup final.
Are you about to talk to me about reality?
It happens.
It happens?
And we just let it happen. I think this could be a place that it happens because Jeff Gordon is so strong there. This could be a place where, well, if the 14 car unloads a little fast, which it hasn't, it could happen. So Jeff Gordon right here, how huge of a storybook, deal would that be for Jeff Gordon, in Indiana?
If he locks down a chase spot at
the Brickyard,
yeah,
huge.
Do you believe in miracles?
Headlines write themselves.
Oh, don't even mention that 1980 Stanley Cup, the Olympic team.
Yeah.
That just gets me. Gets me every time.
You and your hockey.
Yeah,
Dillon is hockey. Speaking of going back to 1980.
I like how your hand. You see the shot right there. His hand's out, and we have something new in the background there. It's the fuzzy squirrel, chubby Chuck, Superman that we just decided to randomly put in there. So if you're watching this and you're like, "What the heck is that?"
We needed a bit of color, and
it was kind of
drab
drab
we
back
didn't
there.
have enough Chuck.
We don't have an interior decorator. Chuck has failed in his. He's the director of fashion for NASCAR.com, but
not just a senior coordinator.
Not just a senior coordinator.
Yeah.
And a reporter and all this stuff. But, his set design has kind of failed us. But now we have this brilliant. I mean, Chuck as a squirrel is amazing.
I can't take credit for that, though. It was Mike Zylak who said, hey, you should put that cardboard cutout on there.
Yeah. Who knows what we'll put in the background?
Yeah, there might be more
air.
I've got to basically pop out of the background a little bit because it's, I kind of tend to blend in. And I didn't help my case today. I'm wearing gray today.
And a gray hat.
It's camo, man.
Look like an old black and white movie.
But speaking of old black and white movies and going back to that, I've been kicking this around in my head for the past couple of weeks. If you could go back to any era in NASCAR, what era would you go back to?
Me, if I could go back and watch one race in person, it would be the 76 500. If I could go back to any era.
Best finish.
Absolutely.
My Lord.
If I could go back to any era, it would be early 90s.
Why?
I just think being able to see Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt battle it out on the track, and, you got guys like Davey Allison and Alan Kawicki out there. I mean, that's what I want to see. I mean, I wasn't lucky enough to be a NASCAR fan then. I wasn't. Even if I was, I wouldn't have been old enough to remember it. So,
making me feel old.
That's what I want to see.
What about you, old man? What about you?
What do you YouTube?
What do you YouTube?
I YouTube about anything in racing, and these guys know it. In the truck, sometimes they're like, "What is he doing?" I'm watching in cars of a sprint car race in Indiana. Honestly, my era of racing that I'd like to go back to would be the 60s. The Weatherly, Curtis Turner, but more importantly, not just the big tracks. My home track that closed in is now a cookie factory, closed in 1984, Islip Speedway. One of the smallest tracks that NASCAR's ever run on. They ran there. Bobby Allison won a race there. And then I believe that same season, he raced at Bowman Gray Stadium and drove one of the pony cars. And that's the famed win that's not counted. But in that era, NASCAR would go to places like Fonda Speedway. Talk about dirt tracks. Upstate New York, one of the most famous dirt tracks there is, upstate New York. They used to go to places like that. That's what I would like to go back to.
I love that era. But you know where I'd go back to?
Let me guess. Can I guess?
Guess.
80s.
No.
Tim Richmond, Dale Earnhardt.
Nope.
No?
2014.
Nope. You know
you
where
really
I'd go
liked
back
last
to?
year.
I would go back to the beach. Do you know why?
Because you like wearing chubbies.
Why?
No.
Yeah,
the
does like
Sand and
wearing
Road
chubbies.
course at Daytona. I would go back there. Not early Sand and Road course, but right there in the late 40s and early 50s, right at the beginning of the sport. Do you know why? Because those guys that raced there were still racing through all of those eras that you were talking about.
Yep.
And that, to be able to see firsthand the evolution of the sport from
the measured mile.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, that would I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. And there's no possible way that it could happen.
I feel like you cheated the system though.
Did you though?
How?
Maybe you had to go back to one era so you could see the other eras.
Exactly.
That's a workaround.
But
what's your one race?
See that last beach and road course race.
Okay. Fair enough.
There's something about it.
You're fired up.
I'm fired up. If you ever go down there and check out the North Turn and check out that, there's so much history there.
These guys right here have taken our guys with NASCAR.com annually go run the actual original beach course down in Daytona, where you could go down to the South Turn and turn out around, go down the beach, go to the North Turn, grab some seafood. That would be my run. I'd stop and eat in the Mad Marion's melt, and then I'd roll on. But
anyway,
I'd probably take it in a golf cart, though.
Again, this is like last week, we talked about music, and, we start getting passion. Maybe we should like note this when we're doing our podcast in the future and kind of bump up these passion like pipe dream things earlier so we've got more time to talk about it. But right now, we're going to have to switch gears and go over to Jonathan Merriman for his, it's now the third time we've done this, and his third Eagle Fact of the Week.
You ready for this? This is playing off the fact that, we have the Xfinity Series at Indianapolis and the Sprint Cup Series at Indianapolis. So let's talk about the two subspecies of bald eagles. You have the southern bald eagle and the northern bald eagle. They're just like the Xfinity cars and the sprint cars. It all relates back to racing in the end. The northern bald eagle is slightly larger,
The northern one likes cannolis.
much like the Sprint Cup car, and the Xfinity car would be the southern bald eagle because they're a little smaller. Just like the Cup cars and Xfinity cars, at their core, they're both race cars, right? At the core of the southern bald eagle and the northern bald eagle, they're still bald eagles. Now, both species have been
still
found
bald eagles
in the northern part of North America, like Alaska and Canada, and the subspecies have been found in as far south as Mexico.
This is really detailed.
We all know.
Like you
Mexican eagles?
Are you like giving me the origin of eagles?
No, you messed up my tagline.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so
Proceed.
the southern
Proceed.
bald eagles can be found in Canada.
Drinking sweet tea off the rocks.
The northern bald
Lord.
eagles can be found in Mexico because freedom has no borders, Chuck, and God bless America.
Oh, freedom has no borders.
Yeah, too bad you interrupted me. It would have been a lot better the first time.
That was
Jonathan Merriman's Eagle Fact of the Week with his punny tag. I'm the only one allowed to do puns here. All right? Not really.
We got to make our picks.
We got to make our picks.
Oh, yeah.
I was getting to that. Was getting ready to say that. Now that you made your Eagle Fact, we got 3 races. If you're listening to this tonight, you've got the Eldora race. Whoa, hey, there's a little bit of a vase light that you've got Eldora. You've got the Xfinity Series race at Indianapolis. And then you have the Cup Series race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Give me your 3 drivers that win those 3 races. Jonathan Merriman, go.
I'm going to defer to him first.
Oh, he went to me first.
I always go first. You introed him first. He can make his picks first.
Well, in the Cup Series race, we see it right there. The cars going down that hollowed grounds of that front stretch at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm going to say Jimmy Johnson ends the slump. Jimmy, you wanted to pick him, didn't you? In the Xfinity Series, I'm going with Austin Dillon because Austin has just been red hot. And we saw that this past week at New Hampshire. He almost won that race. And in the Truck Series, I'm going a little off here. Everybody's thinking Crafton, I know. But a guy with dirt track experience, Tyler Reddick, is going to hold off. You ready? I got a top 2 prediction. Hold off. Schrader, baby. Ken Schrader's racing at Eldora. So I think Reddick holds off Schrader.
No, you couldn't go with Schrader for the sentimental love there?
I wanted to, but I really think Tyler Reddick is going to do it. I've seen him run dirt late models there and dirt cars other places, and the kid's the kid's a really good wheelman.
Okay. Jonathan?
I know I picked this kid a lot, but I like Eric Jones on the dirt track.
I mean, the kid can get it done just about anywhere.
He's,
All right.
He's a little mini Kyle Busch. He's like the mini Eminem.
Eric Jones?
Mini Busch?
Eric Jones
In Eldora.
in Eldora.
In Indy in the Xfinity race.
I'm just going to pick a name out of a hat. I'm going to say Bubba Wallace.
Bubba Wallace
What
gets
hat?
his first win.
At Indy.
At
Yeah.
Indy. Okay.
He won Eldora last year.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you thinking he's
Why not just re-up
You
the
go
same
from
weekend?
dirt to, asphalt.
Jeff
So,
Gordon's going to win the Cup race.
Jeff Gordon.
Don't kid yourself.
So we both picked Chevrolet. Chevrolet's been on
Hendrick
a
Chevys.
Chevrolet slump, which is only like, they've won 1 of the last 4.
It's
They've
not
been
a
so
slump.
dominant, but
Jimmy Johnson's
but
on the
Brickyard
slump. That's
400, they've been awesome.
Last 12.
It's going to be.
Matt Strickard in my ear.
Ooh,
making
last
me
12
look
races.
Smart.
Making you look smart. That is a difficult all-day job.
Last 12
Sure
in Indy,
is.
I should
Last
say.
12 in Indy. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
last 12 at Indy, yeah.
Pick 'em, Chuck.
you guys are looking at me.
Come
like
on,
I need to
Chuck.
pick. All right, so I'm going to go in Eldora. Brad Keselowski. And
Well, why are you just going to?
because he's in the race, and I think that he's driving. He'll probably drive a little ticked off after last week. He was a little grumpy in the media center, so he's going to go out there and just kind of take that out on the field, not in a bad way, in a good way. That's going to put on a great show, because it's a bit of the dirt kind of levels things out a little bit, in a sense, and I think he might get the win out there. Xfinity race. That's a tough one.
God, he's
Chris
slow
Buescher.
for a guy that
Chris
listened
Buescher.
to us.
I'm going to go Chris Buescher.
Oh, Buescher, nice.
Yeah, I'm going Chris Buescher. And then in the Cup race, Carl Edwards.
Really?
Wow.
No one's picking Kyle Busch? He's kind of on fire right now.
He's on fire, but I don't know if he can do it.
Why not?
Let's find out. We'll find out
Only
at the
two-
same. We will find
What?
out at the same time as everybody else.
Only 2
On
finishes
Sunday.
outside of the top 10 for Kyle Busch
I know.
at Brickyard.
He's good. He's good.
He's sort of good,
Can I
that
change
Kyle
my
Busch
pick?
guy.
What, you going to switch to Kyle Busch?
No, I'm going Fairy Tale.
All right. Fairy Tale Merriman
Fairy
going
tales
with
it
Jeff
is.
Gordon. Well, we have gone a little bit overboard today. So I think it's time that we wrap things here on the Dirty Air podcast. Be sure to check out the truck race at Eldora this weekend and both the Xfinity and the Cup race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and watch Matthew Dillner
Look at
wave
the
the
flick of the
checkered
wrist.
flag. The flick of the wrist, because we're dropping the checkers here. So make sure you hop out in that clean air, chase down that leader, and we'll see you next week back in the pack here in the Dirty Air.